Hi there. I wanted to check in and touch base and see how things are going as you go through the study guide. This week, you've probably been moving through chapter 2, and in that, if you're anything like the women that I'm working with in person on this and on our online group, you maybe found that it was a little harder this week. And I want to encourage you to not give up as you go through this. There is a point to the difficult exercises in this study guide. I hope that it is always an encouragement to you, but there will be moments throughout this where I ask us to look into assumptions and habits that we have allowed to develop in our lives that basically talk down to who God's designed us to be. Because the thing is there's a lot of emotional negativity around our quirks. If we talk a lot, if we laugh too loud, if we overthink things, if we plan stuff, we're controlling, we're a meddler, we worry, even if we struggle with things like bending the truth, like manipulating situations, those kinds of things are naturally just under a pile of emotional yuck. And so it's going to sometimes feel a little raw, and it's going to be a little bit maybe unexpected when that happens. But the good news is that we are with the great physician in this process, and he does not cut to hurt, he cuts to heal. And so if we can lean into that together, trust each other, find a friend that you can read and work through this with so that you don't feel like you're alone, send me an email, connect somehow online. We can do this together. And I believe there's a blessing in it for you and for all of us. That said, there's an activity in section 2 that's super important, and I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle or lost in the, that's too hard moment. It is going to ask you to take a look at a quirk that just pick one. You can pick an easy one if you want to start easy, or you can just dive in, which is what I would do. That's one of my quirks. Go big or go home. Pick it. Think about when you've seen it most, what kinds of situations, what relationships does it show up in. Talk about when that has been a benefit. When have people appreciated that in you? When do you appreciate that quirk in you? Let's say you're super responsible. You appreciate that basically people can give you a task, you get it done. You're reliable, you're trustworthy. People know they can depend on you. Those are great things. Obviously, that's awesome when you're working on a project or you're doing something in community service or being the room mom for your kid. Awesome. It's maybe not so much when the boundaries get blurred and you're not sure which part is yours to do, God's to do, someone else's to do, and you start to slip into other people's responsibilities and start to get resentful and frustrated and tired and worn out. So those are some of the dark sides that you see in that. But there are some incredibly positive sides to being the kind of person who takes responsibility for something within a 5-mile radius of you. So I'm looking at both sides with us this week. And then there's this part where I'm going to ask, take a look and look at the scriptures that you feel speak against that tendency in you. And this is a very sensitive topic, and I understand that this is really challenging for some people. It sounds like I'm asking us to discount what scripture says, or that I'm saying it's okay for us to behave badly in our quirks. And that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, let's take a look at scriptures that make you feel bad about quirks in you, and let God show you what he really means by them. Because it says that scripture is God breathed, and it's profitable for teaching, for correction, for reproof, for growing us. And that doesn't mean that it is always supposed to change and take out of us who he has woven into us. It just means that it's correcting it. It's taking things that get a little off track and putting it in the right track again. And so if you are a person who is very busy and kind of a Martha person from that story of Mary and Martha, and you read scriptures like, be still and know that I am God, and that's one of your classic hot button, I feel really bad, I need to stop being who I am kind of scriptures, that's one you'd write down. If you are a person who loves to speak, one of mine that's been really hard is passages in Corinthians that talk about how women should not speak in mixed groups between men and women. Those have really been struggly scriptures for me because I feel called to minister to entire congregations, not just the women in my group. And so I have had to sit down with that and say, God, you've given me a heart to minister to men and women. How does that work? How does that go with your scripture. What were you saying in the time period that you said it? What are you saying to me today in that? Do you mean to change my behavior with that, or do you want me to be careful in my mindset and my heart with that correction in that scripture? So what I'm asking us to do is not assume that we know what God means by those scriptures that have chronically tended to feel like an indictment to us. To not take them at face value, but to ask God, how can this shift the way that I use my quirks, rather than removing it like a surgeon? What if you want to leave that in me and mold it and mentor it and make it more like you? So that's what I'm asking with that exercise. I'd encourage you to go through scripture. Think of the things that have made you feel bad in scripture. Write them down, re-engage them, ask God to show you. And then think of the scriptures that are encouraging to you. So I have got tons of scriptures about how to speak with life-giving words, how to let God, like in Isaiah, touch my mouth with that coal of purifying power of his to make it his words that come out when I speak. There's so many scriptures that are positive that I lean on. I would encourage you to take some time and find those life-giving, life-building scriptures that mentor you in that particular bent and tendency. And this activity, I think, is a real solid foundation for us to move forward in this study. So I encourage you to stick with it. You can do it. I love you. I'm so excited and super proud that you are making time for this and that you are seeing what God did when he wired you.